This conference will now be recorded.
Welcome, and thank you for viewing this recording of our first AGA Celebrity Gemologist interview, featuring no less than the unconquerable Antoinette Bonanno Matlins. During the live interview last week, we experienced some technical difficulties with the internet feed, which rendered the recording useless. We are grateful to Antoinette for giving us another chance to record our interview. I'm Teri Brossmer, current AGA President, and it is my distinct pleasure to talk with my friend Antoinette today. There are just a few things to go over before we get started. For those of you who are not familiar with AGA, we are a nonprofit professional organization dedicated to providing a platform for gemological education and networking, and to upholding, promoting the highest professional ethics within the gemological community. If you are not yet a member, please consider joining some of the world's brightest gemological minds as an AGA member. There are membership levels for everyone, from students and hobbyists to practicing gemologists and research scientists. As a nonprofit association, we rely not only on our membership dues, but also on the generosity of our sponsors. In 2022, essential support is provided by Art Samuels and EstateBuyers.com as our diamond sponsor. And beyond the financial support, Art shares his time and experience and is one of AGA's loudest cheerleaders. This year, we are incredibly fortunate to enjoy the support of these fine institutions as Emerald sponsors: Heritage Auctions, Stoller Settings, the American Society of Appraisers, the Canadian Gemological Association, Magilabs, Gem Shopping Network, and the Scottish Gemological Association. Please consider these businesses for your professional needs. I hope to see many of you at our first in-person conference in 2.5 years. AGA is excited to announce that registration is open for our half-day conference on June 9th, 2022 at the Westin Las Vegas Hotel and Spa on Flamingo. And wow, what a lineup of industry change makers we have as presenters. Martin Rappaport, chairman of the Rappaport Group, will talk about the worldwide diamond and diamond jewelry market. David Block, CEO of Serene Technologies Limited, will give us a sneak peek into the world of automated intelligence, AI, diamond grading, and other groundbreaking technology. And Tom Moses, Senior Vice President, and Yu Liu, Director of Metrology and Quality Control for GIA, will address the results of recent studies on fluorescence in diamonds. Following the conference, AGA will host a cocktail and networking reception. Just in case your travel or show appointment plans don't allow you to attend the conference, we hope you'll join us for the reception, where you are sure to run into old friends and make new ones. Tickets are available for the afternoon conference and reception, or for the reception only. This has been long awaited and is not to be missed. Before we get started for the main event, I'd like to thank Dr. Cheatham Lulay, who continues to amaze us with her inspired vision for the future of AGA and for her dedication to the gemological community. The Celebrity Gemologist interview program was Cheatham's idea. About 25 years ago, I first experienced the energy and practical approach to gemology that is uniquely Antoinette Matlins as a student in one of her lectures. Of course, I was aware of Antoinette through her books and television appearances, but I'd never met her in person. It was that class that cemented her celebrity status in my mind. Her skill as an educator and her prowess as a gemologist made a deep impression on me and many others in the room. Since then, we have enjoyed the opportunity to work together on important projects, from consumer awareness to AGA management. Through career challenges and glass ceilings, Antoinette has left an indelible mark on our world. Now let's get better acquainted with this celebrity gemologist. Hi, Antoinette, welcome today. Thank you for coming back. It's great to have you here, and we're all looking forward to a behind-the-scenes look at what makes you the woman you are.
Well, Teri, as you know, I was simply born lucky. Having Antonio Bonanno as a father makes it really easy to discover an interest in rocks, minerals, crystals, gold panning. And my childhood could not have been more exciting and more thrilling, because I'm one of 6 children, as you know, and the earlier children, we older ones, got almost all of Dad's time. We got to go with him on field collecting trips across the country, Maine for tourmalines, North Carolina for emeralds, gold panning in the creeks of Virginia and Maryland, Pennsylvania jade in Pennsylvania, on and on. And it was wonderful to have had the father that I had. My father also had a unique gift. Of course, in school, when we got to that stage where we had science projects, mine was always on some aspect of the gem and mineral field, from things like building my own dichroscope with Dad's help. Now, mine wasn't the little portable dichroscope I carry with me all the time. Mine was made with a soup can and a very large piece of calcite glued into the middle of the soup can and pulled right. But anyway, Dad had this ability to teach children at every age about the world of rocks and minerals and crystals. And he spoke and explained things in a way anyone could understand. Now, without that experience, I'm not sure where life would have led me, but certainly I owe a great deal to my father. I also owe a great deal to my mother, who had an amazing ability to write. I always wondered where I got the writing gene, because I never liked writing. I actually hate writing. I never expected to be an author. I never expected to write the first book, let alone all the books I've written. But my mother, she won a fence that went around our yard with a letter that she wrote to one of the radio talk shows back in the mid 40s, early 50s. And she won a little dog, a little wire-haired fox terrier for her lovely children. But she did have an amazing ability to write. So her influence, and what people don't know, is that when I was a very young child, I was quite ill a number of times. I missed a lot of school, and my mother taught me to read. And she taught me using the sounding out of letters. She didn't know about teaching reading, but she knew what each letter sound made, and she would help me sound out the words. And she basically taught me to read in a manner none of my brothers and sisters learned to read. But I learned to read, and little did I know how it would impact me later in life. So, you want to know how it impacted?
You didn't start out as a gemologist.
No.
You started out as an elementary school teacher, right? How did that come about, and what did you learn from that experience that shaped your future?
That was actually one of the most important experiences in my entire life in terms of shaping my future. It was the first year of forced integration in Virginia schools. And I lived way out in the country, in a very poor, very impoverished county, where the white children and black children never mixed. And in these impoverished families, there was a certain taking pride in the fact there was someone they could look down on, right? The black children. So here we are all together in an integrated school system. And these children had difficulties. They were not doing well in their classes, white and black. They had challenges in terms of their ability to read or math or anything else. And I was brought in to do the remedial reading class. Now, I didn't know anything about teaching either. That had not been my major in college, but I was the only one with a college degree in Spotsylvania County, Virginia. So I finally accepted. It taught me more about creative approaches. First, you had to get their attention. They were so used to failing that they didn't even try, and they wouldn't listen. The solution, of course, was a creative one. I put M&Ms on the table, different colors. You know, you get it right on the first answer and you can get 3 M&Ms, pick your own color, and so on and so forth. So anyway, and then you had things like a child pulling a knife on another child during a fire drill, and having to get that knife away and trying to figure out, seeing its tip right next to the jugular, how to get the knife away and hopefully prevent bloodshed. And I came up with this creative solution. Why don't you give me the knife and we'll go out on the playground and you can punch it out fist to fist like real men. And they did, and they became friends. Long story I won't go into, but the point was I never even imagined facing something like that. And I'm not somebody who promotes fighting to solve anything. But when you see a knife right at the jugular of a child's throat, you just do what you think you have to do. And it worked. And they became friends and they set an example for the school. But it was just finding ways to motivate them, finding ways to give them self-confidence, learning that keeping it simple was the solution, and finding ways to motivate them. It was M&Ms in the beginning, and then it was gold stars, and then it was just a, very good. And then they were excited because they were reading. They were creating their own stories. That has been with me my entire life. When I teach gemology, or I don't teach gemology, I don't teach the science. I teach what you need to look for, what you need to look out for, simple tools you can carry with you in your pocket, because when you're out at a conference or a show, international show somewhere, you're not carrying your microscope on your back or your spectrometer or you have to have simple tools that can give you clues to know for sure what you're really buying. And I carry those simple tools with me all the time, and it's an art that many people have lost today because there are so many sophisticated tools which you can use in your office. But what about when you're not in your office? So this is why I have spent a lot of time at the various shows globally teaching how to use simple tools, all of them portable, most of them altogether can fit in the pocket, and learning how to use them properly, because people, you mentioned ultraviolet lamp, fluorescence earlier. And the reality is most people have forgotten how to do ultraviolet examination. I've seen them, pull out their ultraviolet light in a room filled with light and have the stone sitting in a white tray, and they turn on the light. Oh, surprise, surprise, it didn't show any fluorescence. No, you couldn't see it in the brightly lit room. They forgot how you have to have the stone you're examining in a darkened space, as black as you can get it, as dark as you can get it. You need to have the lamp a certain distance. You need to have both long wave and short wave, and so on and so forth. So it was one of those things where it became very clear there was a need for going back to the simple tools that still exist that can provide you with important clues. And as you and I have talked, you have to like mysteries to be a good gemologist. Now, I don't know if you like mystery novels. I do. I love mysteries and mystery shows. Okay. You want to collect the clues, and each clue helps you solve the mystery. It is exactly the same with a gemstone. You're looking at a red stone. Is it a red spinel? Is it a red garnet? Is it a red tourmaline? Is it a red beryl? What is it? And the simple tools, if you know how to use them properly, can help you identify, even today, close to 90%, well, 85% with 3, but by the time you add a portable shortwave, longwave, ultraviolet lamp, you can up it to about 90%. And the value in terms of identifying synthetic colorless diamonds, a UV lamp to this day has proven to be the only tool I actually need, a long wave, shortwave, ultraviolet lamp, and the ability to create a dark environment. And that picture that I'd like to get my hands on that someone took. Yeah, I think it was the Vegas show, when you may recall there was a guy at the Vegas show talking about this 10+ carat E-color VS synthetic lab-grown diamond. And he said, and they show no fluorescence. I thought, interesting, no fluorescence. So I, of course, at the end say, do you have the diamond with you? Well, of course, I brought it for everyone to see. I said, isn't that wonderful? Can we look at it with the ultraviolet lamp? He said, why? It doesn't show fluorescence. I said, well, yeah, but I'd like to check it myself. So the carpet was dark, almost black. I also, usually when I'm out at a gem show, I'm wearing something that has a black lining, or my black trousers or something. We go under the table that was skirted, so it kept out the extraneous light. And we checked under long wave, nothing. And remember, most diamond dealers have only a long wave ultraviolet lamp, because when naturally occurring diamonds fluoresce, if they fluoresce, they show it most strongly under long wave. And then if you checked it under short wave, whatever it showed weakens, okay? Well, the short wave, but so they're just checking to see if it has fluorescence, knowing they'll see it under long wave. But we went down with the long wave, short wave, and under long wave, it didn't show anything. And I think you probably remember what it showed under short wave. It showed intense fluorescence with the classic zoning, multi-cross zoning that absolutely indicated lab grown. And so when we told the guy he had to come and look too, he got down on his hands and knees under the table with the rest of us. But the point is, number one, you can never stop learning because something is always changing in our field. Dad used to say, the only constant in the field of gemology is change. And you can't necessarily believe even what the experts are telling you. This guy was not lying. He believed that the diamonds they created showed no fluorescence because they'd only used long wave. It's a diamond, right? They only use long wave because that's all you need for diamonds, because colorless diamonds, when they fluoresce strongest under long wave. That's naturally occurring diamonds. So unless you're checking with every tool you have and doing your own research, if I had believed what he said and not asked to see that stone, I might actually have believed that someone was now producing a colorless synthetic diamond, really top quality, that doesn't fluoresce, because he said so. And the articles, every article in the gem trade magazines, all said that they did not show, whoops, sorry about that, folks, that they did not show, fluorescence. And I just asked because I had a hard time believing that they didn't. So we checked and we all saw with our own eyes, and that changed the understanding. And also it changed the perception of how difficult they were to identify so far. And if it changes, I hope I'll have the opportunity to know that for sure. But so far, even those where I've been told there's no fluorescence, I have seen fluorescence. So using the ultraviolet lamp properly in the darkened environment against a black background and holding it long enough, that's another mistake people make is, 3 seconds, no, it doesn't fluoresce. And it was Thomas Henschwing, Dr. Henschwing in Liechtenstein at one of our conferences that emphasize the importance of holding an ultraviolet lamp over the gem you're examining for an extended period of time. You can't just hold it over and no, you have to make sure it stays under that exposure, in some cases for as many as 15 or 20 minutes. And then you'll see whether or not it actually exhibits any fluorescence. So that conference, that AGA conference with Dr. Henschwing was there. He was fabulous, and all of our students were fabulous, but he was especially good because he was opening our eyes to things others had not. Cultured pearls, even. Natural pearls are considered, even to this day, the rarest of naturally occurring gems when they're fine quality and a decent size. And back a number of years ago, there were suddenly a disproportionate number of large, symmetrical, top quality natural pearls entering the market. And they had lab reports from all of the respected laboratories, natural pearls. Thomas is the one who thought something's not right here. There are just too many. And of course, the size was quite large. And he did some research. He happens to be located near a major university, so he has access to equipment most gemologists and even some gem testing laboratories don't have at their disposal. But he also bought a few with his own funds, and he sliced them. They were actually pearls made by taking a large, ugly natural pearl from a particular species of mollusk. Nobody would ever wear what that mollusk produced, except it was all nacre. So you get these large all nacre pearls, polish them into a symmetrical shape, insert them in another white type a mollusk like the larger mollusks for the like the Australian South Sea pearls, reinsert them all nacre in one of the larger mollusks. Now it builds up all that beautiful nacre around it, and suddenly you have a huge, quote, natural pearl that wasn't. So Thomas is the one that figured that out. And but the point is, we don't know until we do the right type of testing. And whenever there is just suddenly too much of something in the market, you should question why. And a new mollusk, a new source, whatever. I think you were in Tucson with the pink topaz. That was the gem. Pink topaz, natural color pink topaz, is not a commonly occurring stone. And in large sizes with a really rich color pink, it's a less common stone. And I was in Tucson and I was seeing this guy, the pink topazes were beautiful, but they were just a bit too, the price was too good. The moment I see a price that's too good, you have to ask why. And I'm standing there talking to this guy and he said, oh, there's a new source. I said, oh, I haven't read anything about this new source. Oh, well, the articles haven't come out yet, but they will, you'll see. I said, well, it's very pretty. Could I just take it to my booth? I'm set up right out in the lobby area. I just want to do some testing myself. Like, I'd like to immerse the stone in one of the liquids I have. I just want to see more. Well, I don't really know you. I can't let you just take this stone off the floor. I'm sorry. And then my father appears in the background. And this guy says, hi, Tony. I thought, aha, you don't know me, but you know my dad. So dad comes up and he said, well, hi, I won't mention the name. I see you've met my daughter. And the expression on his face was suddenly not the same. He said, oh, this is your daughter? Yes, this is my oldest daughter, Antoinette. And I said, hi, it's so nice to meet you. Gee, now that I know you know my dad, can I take that stone upstairs and immerse it? He couldn't say no. So my dad, I told him that, and he looked, he said, yeah, those are gorgeous pink topazes. And he said, I see what you mean. The price is a little too low. We go upstairs. As we are walking, he said, well, it'll be interesting to see what you see. And of course, what the immersion showed was that there was a surface coating. I mean, it was so obvious that these were not natural pink color topaz. They were natural topaz. Then he confesses that they had tried to do some various treatments and they didn't work. And then because they looked worse, not better, they surface coated them to turn them pink. And actually only the bottom was, quote, painted pink. But he then confessed. But this is somebody who was exhibiting at one of the top shows, and he knew that what he was selling was not a naturally pink topaz, and he was deceiving the public. And it doesn't matter if the price was appropriate for what you were actually getting. You were being led to believe it was something much rarer than what you were actually getting. So let's say I was looking for pink topazes and comparing it to prices that some of the other sources may have had in a lovely pink topaz, which would be much more money. If you believed what the other guy told you, why would you not buy it from somebody who was respected and at a top show? If it's more affordable, you could buy two for the price of one, you know? These kinds of things we all have to ask ourselves. But what good does it do you to ask the question if you don't carry with you tools that can help you figure out what it really is or might not be? Sometimes you don't know for sure, but you know enough to know that you better know how to reach the person later, should it turn out not to be what they represented it to be. And more importantly, whether you're buying, whether it's trade to trade or retailer to public, if I'm a consumer and I'm buying, I'm going to ask certain questions. If I'm in the trade and I'm buying from someone else in the trade, I'm going to ask certain questions. And I am going to get the answers in writing on their sales receipt. If I'm going to buy, hopefully I can take it on a memo basis and not have to exchange money initially, but sometimes you can, and sometimes, particularly at international shows, you can't. You buy it, but if they've misrepresented the facts, then they are obligated to refund your money in this country and in most other countries around the world today at the major shows if someone has represented it. But to make sure you can prove what they said, that's why you have to get it in writing, because otherwise it becomes a, well, no, I didn't say that. And sometimes it's an accident. I think you know the story about the chrome tourmalines. This was at one of the first major shows in another country, and I went, and there was a man selling chrome tourmalines, and I had a client for a beautiful chrome tourmaline. Now, chrome tourmalines at that time were about $400 per carat for a 5 to 6, 7 carat stone, versus 40 for normal verdolite tourmaline, right? And I pull out my Chelsea filter. You know, I'm the one who never leaves home with a Chelsea filter. I open up the Chelsea filter. The lights are beaming down on the stones. I don't even need to get close. I can stand up 3 feet away from the counter with the Chelsea filter next to my eye because the light is coming down off the stones, reflecting off the top very intensely. And I look at them, I say, that one is not a chrome tourmaline. And it was the one that shape-wise was what my client wanted. But the color didn't seem quite like the others. I like the colors of the others. That one's not a chrome tourmaline. He said, what are you talking about? And what are you using, a Chelsea filter? What do you know? I said, what do I know? I know that one is not a chrome tourmaline. And he said, what do you mean? I said, chrome tourmalines have chromium. That's why they go red through the Chelsea filter. And if they don't go red through the Chelsea filter, they can be a tourmaline, but they're not a chrome tourmaline. He said, let me see that. He took it, and then he pulls out the rest of his chrome tourmalines. He had bought them himself in Eder Oberstein. Now, to this day, neither he nor I know whether someone at the gemstone cutting office where he bought them accidentally, you know, they're green. Did somebody accidentally mix some verdolites with the chrome tourmaline? They were all tourmaline. Or did somebody deliberately mix one in because at the prices they were selling, that was a lot of profit on just a single stone, given the price difference between verdolite and chrome tourmaline, up the profits for the company or the individual who might have been deceiving. Or was it just an accident? I can't answer those questions. I can speculate. And if I find there's a history where somebody continues to somehow make mistakes, then I don't want to buy from those people anymore. I don't want to pass on a mistake to any of my clients. That's why I always do my own due diligence. But it's the kind of thing, oh, I think I told you also, Tucson, the last Tucson show before pandemic struck. I was out on the strip, and you know, they've got the tents and they have lots of rough dealers, and there was a dealer selling rough ruby. And I go over, I take out the Chelsea filter again. His booth was right on the end of the tent. The sun is just beaming down. I didn't need my mag light, my warm light. And I put the filter to my eye, and I go, and he had a, you know, like a bushel barrel full of rough ruby. And I go, and he started laughing. He said, you know, I'm surprised more people buying ruby don't use one of those. I said, so you know what I'm doing? He said, yeah, you're picking out the lab grown. I said, yes, but if you know that, why are you selling these as natural rough ruby? He said, lady, I buy by the kilo and I sell by the kilo. It's not up to me to teach you what you are or are not buying. If you're going to buy, you should know what you're buying and how to know that you're getting what you think you're getting. And if you don't, that's not my responsibility. Wow. And of course, I told my sisters, and between the three of us, we told as many people as we could during that day to go there and see what a cheat this man was, and see, listen, ask the questions, you'll see. But wherever, you know, people generally, particularly the public, tends to think the closer you get to the mines, the safer, the less risk you have. You're getting the real thing at really good prices. Now, the closer you get to the mines, if you are knowledgeable, experienced, and have the right tools with you, you can get wonderful material at competitive prices. But if you don't know what you're doing, it is the easiest place to be deceived, because they know that if you don't know what you're doing and you don't even have the tools to check, you think you're getting a bargain when you're not. The number of synthetic sapphires and rubies that Dad used to identify from, unfortunately, people in the military who were buying in Thailand or Afghanistan or wherever else in the world, which were not, they were lab grown. I prefer the word synthetic, but in any event, they are ruby and sapphire. They simply lack the rarity. And it is the rarity of the real thing that makes the difference in price. And of course, today we not only have the real thing, we have the real thing that's improved by various treatments or enhancement techniques. There's a difference in value because there's a difference in rarity for those. So you have to know if they're naturally beautiful the way you see them, or if something has been done to them. There are the lab created, the treated, the natural, the same with cultured pearls versus natural pearls versus imitation pearls. They're just, every year there are more and more things in the marketplace. And technology not only enables us to detect them more readily, it also enables those who would deceive to be better adept at deceiving and deception and misrepresentation. So this is why gemologists and gemologist appraisers and gem collectors and connoisseurs, they need to at least know enough to know what you should be asking about those particular gems. Do your homework about the particular gem you're interested in. Find out what is available today that may look like that gem, be a real gem, and look like it, like chrome tourmaline versus the verdolite, which to a trained eye, there are subtle differences in the color. But the thing is, if you don't know enough about that gem to know what else exists in the marketplace, so that you know not only what to look for in terms of quality differences, but you know what to look out for in terms of other stones that may have a similar color, or other stones that are not the same thing at all, or synthetics or treated. If somebody's selling you a natural, unquote, natural sapphire, do they mean natural versus lab grown? Or do they mean natural meaning untreated and not lab grown? And that distinction is still very murky in lots of places in the world. Simple tools sometimes help you figure it out.
And these are the things that you cover in your books. But I'm interested to have you share with the audience how you went from being an elementary school teacher into the highly competitive world of advertising in New York City, and then on to being an author.
Okay. Thank you for bringing me back on track here. It's how I got going, right? Okay, not everything that I'm still seeing. When I ended up in a divorce, and my daughter went to New York, and I was working for a sales company selling tchotchkes as promotional items for a company, because there were no women saleswomen at that time in the field. And so I was going to these major companies like Lever Brothers and Colgate Palmolive, these companies in New York City, selling these little tchotchke things. But I met the marketing people, and the marketing people said to me, Antoinette, you are wasting your time here. You should be in advertising and marketing. Let me introduce you to our people at Ted Bates and Company. At the time, Ted Bates was one of the top 5 ad agencies in the world. Okay, so I went for an interview, and I got hired. And then I decided, somebody sought me out because they wanted to find somebody, a woman, again, very, very few women in advertising at that time. And they wanted a woman at their agency and to help them when they were making new business presentations. I said, well, it seems to me that getting a woman when you're making the new business presentation is kind of late. If you want to be included in a new business search by a company, you should be talking to them long before they need an agency. I call it new business development. Ad agencies should be looking for prospective clients that they would like to have and meeting with them before, not at that stressful time when they know they need or want a new agency. And this was at a smaller company called, well, I won't say what it was called, but in any event, they hired me and I started this whole new field called new business development in the advertising agency. And I spent a good 10 years. I worked for 3 agencies. They were all fabulous in their own way. And then I started thinking, it really doesn't matter whether it's dishwashing liquid or soap or leather goods. The process is more or less the same all the time. Setting up the meetings, working with your creative team to identify what they're looking for and so on and so forth. I'm getting kind of not tired, I just want to shift gears. And I discussed this with my husband. And then I'm reading a magazine. This is like the mid to late 70s. And I'm reading a magazine and it's touting diamonds as the greatest investment of all time. And Wall Street Journal, next day, same thing. And I said to my husband, I can't believe all of this promotion of diamonds for investment among the public, because they may think they know what to look for, but they haven't a clue what to look out for. And he said, you're not going to believe this, Stuart, but one of the people at the agency bought one of these diamonds and he brought it in to me to take a look at, because they knew that was my background. And it was in a sealed lucite container. And it stated very clearly, if they opened the container, all guarantees and warranties were null and void. Well, how do you know what's in the container? You can't open it and test it. There are lots of things that can look like diamond, particularly through a lucite container, And so I explained that that's the first tip-off, that this is not a legitimate investment, because you can't verify that you have received what you have been told you have received. And by the time you perhaps should ever decide to sell it, because they're telling you it's a long-term investment, good luck finding the company that sold it to you. And then when you do open it to try to find another buyer, you're going to be sorely disappointed. And I will prove it, because if you allow me to open it now, I am going to predict it is not what you think you were buying. And he did, and it wasn't. So I come home and I tell my husband this, and I said, they're going to lose their shirts. And my husband said, well, you just answered your own question. I said, what question is that? He said, what you're going to do next. I said, I'm not following you. He said, let's see. You're in the advertising marketing world. You've just identified a need for which nothing exists to meet it. Because, he first said to me, they'll do their homework. And I said to them, they can't. Unless you have a degree in physics or chemistry, ideally both at that time, there's nothing you can pick up and read that the average public can comprehend. So there's nothing they can turn to get the help they need that's telling them what to look out for and who and how to go to be sure. And he said, you've just answered your own question. And I said, what's the question? He said, write the book that doesn't exist, for which there is a major need. So I called my dad. I said, guess what, Dad? He said, are you crazy? You can't write a book for the consumer. It's much too complicated scientifically. At which point I said, Dad, did I or did I not understand the world of gemology, mineralogy, crystallography when I was a kid in junior high school, and even younger when I was in elementary school? And you're telling me we can't write a book to educate the public? I bet we can. And then I had to do an outline and write the first chapter before he kind of got the idea. And we proceeded. Of course, when we got to sapphires, I was writing about sapphires. He calls me and said, you can't write about sapphires and rubies without talking about dichroism. I said, watch me. He said, Dad, this is not a book on gemology. This is a book on, if you're going to buy a sapphire or a ruby, what to look for, what to look out for, what questions to ask, and what to get on the bill of sale, and where to go to verify it. What credentials do you need to look for in an appraiser? Not just any appraiser. Number one, they have to be a gemologist, and they have to be an up-to-date gemologist appraiser, and they need to be ethical. So, there are organizations that can provide you with the names of people who are known to be knowledgeable and known to be ethical and known to have an idea of the value of things in the market, but the average public doesn't know where and how to find those people. So there has to be a chapter on that too. And we moved right along, and it was really amazing that my father initially was of the same mind as everybody else in the gem field. You can't write that book, Antoinette. I must have heard it from 50 people. And I think that kind of motivated me to prove them wrong. And that first book, I hated the name. I hated the publishing company that published it. I mean, the people, they just didn't get it. But it was called The Complete Guide to Buying Gems, on a black cover with line drawings of 3 stones, one that was supposed to look like a diamond, an emerald, and a ruby. And it looked like a murder mystery, gems. And when I went on the first television show, my first TV appearance was on the Today Show. Talk about having knots in my stomach. I was terrified until I actually got onto the subject. But the experience I had when I went into the bookstores, because I was in New York City, I just got off the Today Show. When the bookstores opened, I wanted to go into the bookstores and see if anybody came in asking for my book. Well, what I found was they came in asking for my book. They were asking for the book called Gems, because there was no book called Gems. So everybody was looking on the microfiche that they used back then for G, because you couldn't see The Complete Guide to Buying Gems. Hold the book up. What's the name of it? Gems. So that wonderful experience on the Today Show, where they actually promoted the book as well as the things I was talking about with gems in general. But if you went into the bookstores, you couldn't find it. Also, it said that it was supposed to be on the shelf with Science and Nature. That's the way the books, the publisher designated it. So it wasn't with the books on jewelry. So I was there when a person came in asking for this book called Gems, and they said they didn't have it. But if we do have it, and maybe you don't have the title quite right, it will be with our other books on jewelry, which is with jewelry and collectibles over on what? No, it wasn't there, because it was on the shelf of Science and Nature. So all of this stuff I learned, and because I had had so much experience, both in learning how to keep it simple, starting with teaching remedial reading all those years ago, and dealing with things like getting their attention and motivating people, and then the advertising experience, I found myself in a position to see the issues, see the problems, and find ways to circumvent them on my own. And then we were able to get the rights back from the main publisher, from the first publisher. And there was another wonderful publishing company called Van Nostrand Reinhold, which no longer exists, but they were very interested in the book. So we moved, changed publishers, and it was a wonderful experience with the next company. But it's a matter of understanding where and how. And that, I think, was an advantage I had that very few people in our field had, in terms of, they may have been scientists, but the whole marketing, promotional end of it is something they were uncomfortable with. And people would say to me, don't you feel a little uncomfortable promoting your own books? And I said, let me put it to you this way. I wrote the books because I really believe people need the information that's in it. If I believe they need that information, why would I not want them to know about it and know where and how to get it? I don't see it as self-promotion. I see it as making a product available for people who have a need for that product. And when there were other products available, people in the same area, people can choose which one they like best or relate to best. And it started a whole thing where others were writing books. And now there are a number of books available for the public, and they're all wonderful books, and they just expand the potential. My books are now published in, I think it's 9 languages, some of them, not all of them. And I hope they're right, because I don't really speak Arabic. The first foreign language edition of my first book was in Arabic. And the only thing I can recognize are the initials following my name and my dad's name. And, but I hope it's right, because I don't have a clue what it says. And they're in Spanish and Chinese now, and Japanese. They're in lots of languages, and it's exciting. But of course, I have no way of knowing whether they're accurate and properly translated, because I don't know those languages, but it's nice to know they're out there. So.
Well, just to wrap up this morning's interview, which is fascinating, I have one question for you.
Yes.
What changes would you love to see take place in the gem and jewelry world if you could wave your magic wand?
Oh, that's a tough one. I would like to see everyone who buys and sells gemstones and diamonds understand how to use 3 or 4 simple tools they can take with them, and understand how to use them properly and start using them, so that we can help ensure that buyers who are not gemologists — you don't have to be a gemologist to have enough information to know whether something is iffy or whether it is absolutely that, or you're just really not sure. But if you can know 85% of the time that something is what they're representing it to be, if you have the right tools and know how to use them properly. In fact, there was a woman in Tucson who came to me one year, and I've been giving, my GID workshops regularly for a number of years, and she has all these sheets of paper. She Xeroxed the charts from my book, Gem ID Made Easy, showing what every stone would show with this tool or that tool or the other tool. And I had said, start with one gem, go through the Tucson show, just use your tools on one gem. And by the end of the show, you're going to know what you should be seeing for a real sapphire, whatever the gem is, okay? Then do another gem the next time and whatever. She comes in and she takes, see these? And she takes them and she rips it apart. She throws them in the trash can. She says, I don't need them anymore. I know what I'm looking at now. I know how to use the tools. I know the gems I like best. I know exactly what I should see and what I shouldn't see. And by the way, there's a lot of stuff in Tucson that's not what they're saying it is, which is true. Not necessarily not at the fine shows, but on the strip. My only advice is, heaven help you, particularly if you're not knowledgeable and you don't carry your own tools with you. How long did it take me to know that bushel barrel of ruby rough wasn't all natural? 3 seconds. Chelsea filter, okay? Chelsea filter for looking at any gem, if it's colored gemstone, like parcels or pieces of jewelry with multiple of the quote same thing. Chelsea filter, light. If they're the same color of the same gem, whatever reaction you see with the Chelsea filter should be the same, period. If you're seeing totally different colors, they're not the same. If you're seeing very distinctly different hues, but you look at them with no, they look the same color. You're seeing they're not the same. So for parcels, like that chrome tourmaline, the display took me 2 seconds, okay? There are certain things you can know absolutely definitively with simple tools if you just take the time to use them. So I would like everybody to know what tools they need, how to use them properly. And if they have to Xerox the pages out of the book or somebody else's book in terms of what you're going to see, the this stone, that, then take the pages with you like she did. And she would check the gem with her tools, and then she checked to see what she was supposed to be seeing, if it was iolite versus sapphire versus tanzanite versus whatever. And she knew exactly what she was looking at. And I think everyone has the potential to do this. And certainly, whether you're a salesperson in a jewelry store, whether you're a buyer for a major company. Reminds me of one other quick story. A major company, at that time, the largest retailer of diamonds in the world, and not a jewelry store per se, a major retailer that had a very large jewelry department. And they got a new diamond buyer. And I had been retained by them to go into the stores and teach the salespeople in the stores at the jewelry department, how they could present themselves more professionally and sound more knowledgeable in helping their clients. And I kept seeing these diamonds that they were showing me, and they would sell down to the group I1, okay? But these were not I1. These were what I would call I3, and boy, do I see, okay? Blatantly visible inclusions. And they were asking me, how could these be the same thing? And I said, well, actually, they're not the same thing. That one is a far, far superior quality to this one. These are not the same quality. And you need to talk to your manager. And then they had the manager come to me. You need to talk to the buyer. Somebody is letting things slip through the quality control system because this is a very fine store. It has high ethical standards. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here. So there is an error. The error was the new buyer had been a buyer of handbags and leather goods, and they promoted her to the diamond buyer, and she believed that no one would ever cheat company X because they knew that if they did, they would never have another sale with our company. So, of course, they're not going to misrepresent. I said, well, they have, and you failed the test. And what you have taught them is they can get away with it because you didn't catch it in the first shipment. And yes, you should drop them because if you're asking for I1, you should not be getting I3. And boy, do I see goods, you should be getting I1. And you're not. She fired me.
Oh.
However, the executive vice president, when she heard the story, and because what happened is some of the managers in the markets that I had been traveling went to the executive vice VP to tell them what had happened and why I had intervened in an effort to fix the problem so that their reputation would not be severely damaged if one of their clients paid X for something that was horribly overpriced for the quality they were actually getting. And also the fact that these people in the sales department didn't like, they couldn't show or sell those. They just kind of kept them aside because they thought they were ugly, and they were. So, well, everything is beauty's in the eye of the beholder, but these were pretty bad. And so I was reinstated by the executive VP, and the diamond buyer was terminated. And I'm not sure whether she was on the take or whether she just was ignorant, or whether she was just a combination of ignorant and did not really at all comprehend what one needed to know to successfully buy and sell diamonds. But that was another great learning experience for me, and having to swallow hard when I got fired for trying to do a good thing. But then I got reinstated, so I felt happy again. Anyway, that was another experience. But people need to know in the trade. More people need to know, and they need to know basics that are really interesting, and they need to be able to be comfortable using the number of people I see in retail jewelry stores who can't use a basic loop. And somebody will say to them at the counter, I'd like to use one of those, you know, those things that jewelers use to look at this stone. I mean, people do that when they go into some jewelry stores. And they'll bring them a loop, and then the person doesn't have a clue what to do with the loop, so they kind of hold it out here and the stone out here, and the salesperson doesn't know, or the salesperson will be asked to show them, and the salesperson says, "Oh, you just do this." No, you know, it reflects badly on everybody. But if people knew how to use the tools properly, and they had the tools at the counter, and they could respond to a client who actually wanted to look at something with a loop or under a microscope, you have to know how to set it up. You have to know what to do. And too many people in the selling environment, and too many people who are buying for various companies, particularly those companies where the CEOs now do not come from a gem background or jewelry background. They're coming from a totally different field. They don't comprehend the rate of change and the complexity, and that things that look alike to the eye are not necessarily the same. And they don't get it, so they don't have the right things in place to protect the public. Final note, my father's favorite expression: if it's good for the customer, it's good for the trade. And if it's bad for the customer, it will be very bad for the trade. And with the internet today and media, one innocent mistake can destroy a reputation in the blink of an eye, because it hits the mass media quickly through internet groups, through internet chats, through the whole virtual world as we know it today. So it becomes even more important to really have enough information to understand what to look out for, what to look out for, and how to do your own due diligence with simple portable tools, and then to double check later, or if you're a customer, where and how to find the right person to confirm that all those things you got in writing on your sales receipt are in fact accurate. Because if they are, great, you have one experience to give you some confidence in that seller. But if they're not, you have what you need to get a refund. Or better yet, most people don't know, you can either get a refund or demand that what you bought be replaced with what they told you you bought. In other words, the quality, size, all of that stuff, which is actually a better value for the customer, but who wants to give the business to somebody who didn't know what they were doing anyway, right? So, but it's really important.
We could continue this conversation all day, and I look forward to seeing you in Las Vegas and chatting more. Thank you so much for sharing all your fascinating and entertaining stories. And thank you everybody who tuned in to see our re-recording. We hope you enjoyed our chat today. And you know, our industry is very tight-knit. It's based on reputation and trust. And in case you didn't know it before, I'm sure you would now agree that Antoinette Bonanno Matlins is a brilliant, beautiful, and fascinating woman who serves as a beacon of truth and a gem among gemologists.
I hope to see some new faces at the AGA conference in Vegas. And don't hesitate to come up and introduce yourself, because I'd like to know more about you too.
Great.
Thank you, Teri.
Thank you.